Okay, so let's have a think about the opening stage directions at the start of Act 1 of An Inspector Calls. Um, well, we learn some basic information, don't we? It's the dining room of a fairly large suburban house. Suburban in this case means on the edge of a town. The suburbs are the area around the edge of any town. So we know this is set at a time where housing has started to develop. New houses are being built, and the Burling family have built or have bought one of these large suburban houses. We know that it belongs to a prosperous manufacturer, so straight away in the first sentence we get a sense of the sort of world that we are being introduced to. What else do we learn? Well, good solid furniture of the period. This is a man who clearly has good taste and solid tastes. And the general effect is substantial and heavily comfortable, but not cosy and home-like. And I think this is an important observation that the playwright is making, because what we learn is about a family who have some status, a family who own objects which say something about them. But these objects aren't cosy, they're not home-like. So if you like, what we have is we have a home which is built for show, a home which is built to demonstrate the success of the individual, but it's not homely, it's not something which has had any thought about caring. And we learn this before we even meet Burling, the owner of the house. And therefore what we're doing is we're learning that this is a man who has bought things to show his status, hasn't really bought things for comfort. I'm going to ignore the stage directions here in brackets because these were added afterwards. These aren't J.B. Priestley's. Let's just go down the page a little bit. Okay, so the rise of the curtain. There are four Burlings and Gerald are seated at the table, with Arthur Burling at one end, his wife at the other, Eric downstage, Sheila and Gerald seated upstage. Edna the parlourmaid is just clearing the table, which has no cloth, of dessert plates and champagne glasses, and then replacing them with a decanter of port, cigar box and cigarettes. So there we are. We learn that they've been celebrating something. We can tell by the champagne glasses. We know that this is the end of a meal, and we know that these people have money. The men are in tails and white ties, not dinner jackets. Let's have a look. I'll just move the page up here so we can have a look at a little bit more detail about, there we are, about the characters. Arthur Burling's heavy looking, portentous, someone who is rather grand in his manner. Fairly easy manners, but rather provincial in his speech. So there's a little hint there. Provincial means he has a bit of a sort of a town-like twang to his speech. He's not posh. He's not upper class in the way that his wife would be, Sybil would be. So it sort of gives something of his original class away. Arthur Burling is a man who was working class and a man who has made his money, a man who has worked his way up the rankings of society, but his voice gives that away. And his wife is rather cold, and her husband's social superior. So we learn there that Sybil Burling, the wife, is of a higher class than Arthur Burling. Now we need to remember this because we see Arthur Burling as someone who is always trying to prove himself. He tries to prove himself to his family. He tries to prove himself particularly to Gerald. And this is really the undoing of him as the play develops. And Sheila, rather pleased with life and rather excited, we'll learn why in a moment. And Gerald, who we learn has just asked Sheila to marry him, and he's the easy, well-bred young man. Eric, rather shy, half assertive, and they've all just had a good dinner. So that's what we learn at the beginning.